Hi, welcome to Cubs and Culture for February 3rd, 2018. Doing a culture today. I rewatched King's Speech, as this is one of three Best Picture winners. I actually think the Academy got completely right. I kind of want to talk about this movie. I guess I'm still kind of on my Oscar kick. Anyway, but before I begin that, let me talk a little bit about spring training. Because of the way in which the frozen market is happening in baseball, there's all this talk now of players not attending spring training, and that they're going to boycott spring training because they're so upset about the free agents not being signed. I'm really frustrated by this because, excuse me, the players have something of a point where they're not they're on one sense they are overpaid, because no one should be making millions upon millions of dollars playing a game. But on the other hand, because of ticket prices and everything like that, the owners are pocketing more than 50% of the revenues, and so I go to a Cubs game to see Javier Baez and Wilson Contreras. I don't go to see the fucking Ricketts. So, I'd rather have most of the money going towards the players. And I know that some of that revenue that's not going into baseball operations goes to other things, like concession operations. But for the most part, that's sort of silly that the players aren't getting as much money. Okay, so before get too far into baseball, let me just sort of set this up. Okay, so there's this excuse me. There's this category of movie that people complain about, Oscar bait, how it's usually referred to, which is a group of sort of middle-brow films, like historical dramas, like The King's Speech has sort of been held up as an example of that. A lot of these films were produced by Miramax or the Weinstein Company because they correctly realized there was a market for sort of artistic, mainstream, not like a sort of a middle point between sort of the really independent stuff and tentpoles and blockbusters, where it's slightly more serious filmmaking, but not sort of cutting-edge avant-garde crap. Where it was sort of an art middle ground between those two extremes. And I actually ended up liking a lot of Oscar bait movies, and I actually really hate the concept of Oscar bait because people who use that term seem to think it's really easy to just it's actually hard to make a good film that it's hard to make a film, an important subject film that people actually end up liking. And King's Speech is such a good film, so sort of how it's put together, that it's sort of unfairly dismissive. The other sort of thing that I don't like about this issue is it's often mentioned in connection to the Oscars being out of sync with, not always, but sometimes, and this happened very starkly in this race, where the industry awards, like the Oscars, like the BAFTAs, like the Directors Guild of America, like the Writers Guild of America, etc., all sort of awarded The King's Speech over The Social Network, whereas all the critic circles, like the New York City critic circles, the Chicago critic circles, etc., all went for The Social Network. And the thing is, if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, let me pause and sort of explain this. There are dozens of awards ceremonies. The sort of the big three are the BAFTAs, the Golden Globes, and the Oscars. The Oscars are the last one because they're the most prestigious. And then you have the Guild Awards. Now, the thing is, for the BAFTAs and the Academy, and the Guild Awards, you have crossovers, so it's sort of the same people voting on them. So something like the Directors Guild of America is a very faithful indicator of Oscar success, because every single member of the Academy Directors branch votes on the Directors Guild of America. Now there's more voters. It's something like 15,000 voters for the Directors Guild of America, but a lot of TV directors, for example. And then for the Oscars, in total, it's only like 6,000. So that's what I mean by the industry awards. All the ones in which people in the actual industry working on films vote on them, with the Oscars and the BAFTAs being it. Then there's another group of awards where the Golden Globes are the most prestigious, where it's not individual, it's not people working in the industry in the sense of they're making films. It's critics or press. And the thing is, if you look at these two, Ophelia, sets of awards, they often do diverge. Sometimes, because of the timing, it's around like campaigns, films peak too soon. But it's also simply a matter of matters of taste. Because, and this is sort of the point I wanted to get at, yes, there are such a thing as, it's sort of, the Academy has a certain taste in films, but it's also true that critics have a certain taste in films, and critics don't evaluate films without sort of bias, and so, or bias is not quite the right word, that critics like a certain type of film, or they seem to value other films over others because of their content. And so like, as much as you want to say that, like, the King's Speech is Oscar bait, in that it seems to really fit the Academy's taste, if you go through history, period piece, dramedy, World War II, etc., The Social Network is sort of a biting social critique of the failure of American capitalism, and then also sort of allowing it to be American capitalism, technology, like The Social Network really allowed critics to pontificate about the dangers of Facebook, etc. So I do not understand, why, if people get upset about movies trying to please the Academy, people don't get mad at critics trying to please, films trying to please critics. And I really do think, if you want to say The Social Network is, the King's Speech is Oscar bait, then you have to say The Social Network is sort of critic bait, because on paper, I can't think of a film, sort of subject matter that would be much more as interesting or as much about critics wanting to pontificate about it than the fucking thing about Facebook. And let me actually get into this a little bit. I'm going to end up, because this took me longer to say than I was expecting, so I'll do a much more of a review of The Social Network in the next section. But I don't think there's anything malicious with these sort of different tastes. It's just different tastes. Critics are, they're critics, so they have sort of a different orientation. They like more intellectual stuff. And the Academy is much more sort of about emotion and sort of pleasing a certain segment of the population. But the thing is, and this really does sort of bother me, is there was this whole thing with the critics declaring The Social Network as this utterly generational film that captures this moment in time so well, because it was about fucking Facebook. But here's the thing. One, the movie's really not about Facebook. Two, it's fucking Facebook. It's not socially relevant because everyone uses fucking Facebook. The way in which The Social Network is built, don't get me wrong, it's a good film, but it's actually not, Facebook is almost irrelevant to the plot. It's a MacGuffin, basically. It could have been any sort of business venture. The only thing that has sort of import about it being Facebook is Zuckerberg of the film sort of drives people away and he doesn't connect to people. So there's this sort of irony to the film that the guy who built this tool to really connect people can't connect to people, with womp womp. Like, who the fuck, like, okay, so that's an irony, but that's literally the only thing about it that's connected to Facebook. So I really hate sort of the critical reaction around the Social Network being like this great generational film, or socially relevant, when in fact it is not. It's just like, it's fucking Facebook. Like, it's a tool. Like, there's like, it's not even really about Facebook. Anyway, let me pause there because I feel like I'm trying to rant. See you in a bit.